Another week of PBT Extra, Kurt, and I can't wait to get your thoughts on the playing games. We are in the thick of it. Atlanta, Charlotte. Atlanta basically blew out Charlotte. What was your big takeaways from that the performance?
It wasn't just that they couldn't contain Trae Young, which they'd really done well during the season. Atlanta is so much more dangerous when DeAndre Hunter's playing like that, right? When they've got other guys putting up points, it just blew the doors off the Hornets, who just look. Terry Rozier's better than I think he showed in that game. That was not a great night for them. That was the Hawks, though. I mean, this is a team we saw make that playoff run last year. We saw them even during this regular season when they were up for something. When they go into Madison Square Garden, they look pretty good, right? So they really brought it in this game, and it's going to make an interesting series against last playing game against a Cleveland team that's kind of stumbling a little into the playoffs and isn't, I don't know if they're going to have Jared Allen and what they can give him. They just have not been the same team since he's gone out. And Atlanta plays like that again, they got a real chance to advance.
Yeah, you mentioned it, Hunter, 22 points, 7 rebounds, but an explosive quarter where it was just like you couldn't be stopped. The thing that's interesting about the Hawks is obviously you have the deep threat of Trae Young. He can shoot it from outer space. Basically, any seat in the arena is fair game, right? Like you can shoot from anywhere, the top shelf. But when I watched that game, the interior presence of the Hawks astounded me. Clint Capella was, nearly unstoppable. Hunter was unstoppable. And I'm thinking if those big guys play like that and Trae does what Trae does, this is they're kind of priming themselves for another run. And it wasn't even close the whole game. It was almost like, you could yawn, you move on, take a nap, come back, cook dinner. It was like it wasn't even a game. And I was expecting it to be much closer. Remember earlier this season, Kurt, the Hawks weren't good. They were like at the very bottom of the Eastern Conference. And I thought, what happened from last year to this year? And they're coming together at the right time.
Yeah. They did that, by the way, without John Collins in the middle, which, you think of adding him and he's out injured. I'm not sure when we see him or, if they get into the postseason, but into the playoffs, I should say. But that's a key piece inside that they were missing. That was a big part of their run last year. And you're right. They did. Clint Capella, who's been up and down this year, had a big game. So that's the Hawks team that's not only could get out of this, but you get into that 8th seed and challenge Miami, at least push the Heat and not roll over for them.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to mention here before we move on is John Collins. He was wearing what the coaches wear on the sideline, and Kurt, I'm telling you, I thought it looked good. I thought that I was like, man, because I've seen players wear all sorts of things from like formal to jeans and a blazer to like sweaters to like 2-piece like sweatsuits. They're all matching. I kind of liked it where John Collins just wore what the coaches wore, the Atlanta Hawks zip up, with I thought that was a really clean look. I thought, wow, maybe we should take some notes. I know the players probably won't like that, but I thought it was very clean as a fan watching that. But coming up against the Cleveland Cavs, just briefly, can you please preview that for me? Who do you take?
I kind of like Atlanta if they're playing like that. I think, again, can they get another game like that out of Hunter and Capella against a Cleveland team that brings size to the table, right? They've still got Evan Mobley. They've still got Lauri Markkanen. They still bring Kevin Love off the bench, who played really well last game. But the Cavaliers and Darius Garland's fantastic. This is still a really pretty even game and a pretty big setup. But Cleveland's lacking the confidence they had from that early part of the season. And part of that's injuries. Again, they're just not the same team without Jared Allen in the paint. And you bring in a really confident, rolling Hawks team. I like their chances. I like Atlanta's chances. They can match up inside. They've got some size of their own. They've got some more athleticism. But they're going to need guys beyond just Trae having a game. They're going to need those other guys to step up again.
Yeah, I mean, just briefly, Gallinari, 18 points.
Yeah.
Trae Young had 24, but Hunter, as I mentioned, 22 points, and Clint Capella with a 15-point, 17-rebound double-double. I think it's the Hawks all the way. And I think as far as dark horses are concerned, they proved me wrong. I thought they were out, and I said, what happened this season? I saw Cleveland, basically hobble against the Nets there. And I understand Kyrie Irving was perfect the first half. It was a sensational performance. I understand Kevin Durant's on the team. But, that game was not even close. either. Towards the end there, a little bit of life from Cleveland, but I thought, wow, I thought Cleveland was better than this. And that was concerning to me. So I think it's the Hawks all the way. I want to stay with the Nets for a second. This is one of my favorite series that we have on the docket. Nets, Celtics. Tell me, what are you thinking? With understanding that Robert Williams is out.
That is the big key in this series in some ways for me. I mean, Bobby Brown got in trouble for it, right? Like, he's like, no, we look at that team. We can look at the places we can attack. And Kevin Durant's like, hey, don't say the quiet part out loud, man. We don't talk about this stuff in public. But he's right. Without Robert Williams there, and you've got Thiessen, or look, they can rotate some other guys through. It's not the same Boston defense. There are more places to attack. They're not as switchable. They can't switch a 5 out onto a 3, which you can do with Robert Williams and be fine. There are places to attack, and you go up against that the Nets offense with, obviously, Kyrie Irving's been playing just lights out basketball lately. Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant. And by the way, Patty Mills can have a big game. Like, they've got other guys out there who can step up. I still come to the other side of the ball, though. I know Boston can efficiently score. Like, they've still got guys who can defend, but Marcus Smart can hit threes. But Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum in particular, is going to put up numbers in this series. You're almost going to have to put Kevin Durant on him at points because he's your, frankly, best perimeter defender left. Brown will get some time on him. And the Nets can't stop anybody. And I think that will ultimately be their undoing in this series, is that their defense is just not good. It's just not good enough. And that said, this could go 6, maybe 7 games just because Kyrie Irving wins you a game. Kevin Durant wins you a game. Like, I think it's going to be a fun series to watch, and it's going to be interesting to see how the Celtics adapt in this setting without Robert Williams in the paint. Well, I mean, what are you looking for? What is exciting you about this one?
I think the Nets are going to win, and it's crazy to me because you look at how well the Celtics are playing recently. I mean, arguably the best, well, other than the Suns, clearly, right? The best team since All-Star break. It's arguably the Celtics. They're playing so well, and they're back to that Eastern Conference Final form that we saw. But I'm telling you, when I watch the Nets play right now, there is this mercurial quality that I can't really put my finger on it. That, like, all season long, I'm thinking, okay, well, where was this team, right? And I think we've seen moments that they're close. And I think that was when they played the Bucks recently. There were moments where you're like, okay, well, how good is this team? How they stand against the silver, the sterling of the Eastern Conference? And I think they're fine tuning. And when you have a focused Kevin Durant, who mentioned himself in the comments earlier this season, which blew my mind, because this is a clear development in him. And I thought, how can Kevin Durant get better? And the answer is he's lifting up everyone else around him. He said, look, I'm at the point in my career where I can do what I do, right? But I'm learning that I need to get everyone else involved. And then you have Kyrie being able to play in home and away games, and he's playing at the clip that he's playing at, talk about efficiency. He's a 50, 40, 90 player for a reason, and he's proving it. And he's coming off of a 50, 40, 90 season, and he's still playing at that clip. And the role guys are understanding the role, and they're fine-tuning around those two pieces. I think that they're gonna proceed to the next round here, especially without Robert Williams. And I don't think Robert Williams is like the make or break that we're making it seem to be. I just think that, in this case, the Nets have, in my mind, I think they have the series, Kurt. And it's kind of crazy to say that the 7th seed is going to be the 2, but I really do.
In the playoffs, the value of star players goes up. I mean, during the regular season, you need them to win some games. And look, Kevin Durant puts up 27 a night or whatever. But the value of a star player in their ability to create their own shot, create shots for others, and Kevin Durant, why they needed him in Golden State those years was, Curry could do some of this, but everybody was loaded up on him. They needed another guy who you could throw the ball to and say, hey, there's 7 seconds left on the clock. Go make something happen. And he would, right? He can. That kind of shot creation is invaluable in the playoffs. And, hey, Jason Tatum, I think, can do that, but he's going to have to prove it a little more. Jaylen Brown, I think, can do that, but I know Kevin Durant can do that. I know Kyrie Irving can do that. I think there's real value in your star players in the postseason. We'll see how they match up. I think Boston matches up better than most teams, but how you stopping those guys, man?
Yeah, because when I was watching Kyrie, what's interesting about him is you think, okay, well, obviously he's one of the best one-on-one players. So that is, don't worry about it. You're probably going to lose that battle. But what blew my mind was his ability to find everyone else around him. And I think when Kevin Durant is setting the standard as, I'm one of the best players in the world. Last summer, arguably the best player in the world at that moment. And my focus is getting everyone else better because I'm at that point where the game is too easy for me. It reminds me of when I was watching Magic Johnson's Hall of Fame speech, and his high school coach told him, look, he was averaging 40 plus points at the time. And he's like, we're not going to win if you average 40 plus points. You need to average 20 to 25 plus points a game and get everyone else better, and get everyone else involved. And I think Kevin Durant is at that point where, remember the game against the Bucks last year where it was just Kevin Durant was sensational, but they still lost? It's like, what's the point of putting up 40 plus points, playing every single minute, and being the best player in the world, but losing, And I think Kevin Durant's understanding that point. And when he says, I'm going to get people better, and Kyrie Irving starts to follow suit and he's finding people, that's the development that's scary development. And I understand that this team has had issues with continuity and consistency, but Kurt, that moment now, I'm telling you, I think it's the Nets.
That is going to be one of the most entertaining series in the first round, because it really is game to game. Just, by the way, Kevin Durant, I don't care how good Ime Udoka's game plan is. Kevin Durant blows up game plans for lunch, man. So it's going to be fun.
Injury report now. We've had some stars out recently. Curry's foot, Doncic strained calf. Obviously, Kawhi hasn't been playing, and the Clippers, right? So where do you stand right now with all the injury reports? Give us an update, Kurt.
Well, start with the Clippers first. Obviously, they've got to get out of the play-in game, but I think that they've been without Kawhi all season. They've got Paul George back. They know who they are and what they're trying to be. Even if they're going to get out, even if they get out of this, they go up against Phoenix. They're not beating Phoenix, right? But it's the kind of veteran, versatile team where Morris and Kennard and Patrick Williams, everybody they've got, not Patrick Williams, but Reggie Jackson, everybody they've got knows how to play. They're just going to make your life difficult. They are not going to be an easy out. You're going to have to fight and scrap for every point against them. So I know who they are. The other two, that's where things get interesting, doesn't it? What can Golden State beat Denver if Curry comes back, let's say in game 3, and they split the first 2 at home? Oh, I don't know if that's enough now, right? Denver's in that series. They've been without their stars all year. They know who they are. Nikola Jokic is likely your MVP. I like that chance. And Dallas without Doncic, as much as we talked about last week, how that is the most dangerous team in the league. They're not without Luka Doncic, and we don't know. Everybody's pretty much treating it like hockey right now. They might as well have just come out and said he has a lower leg injury. They're so vague. Jason Kidd in his press conference, and they're like, "Well, what grade is the calf strain?" He's like, "Those have grades." It was comedy. So I'm curious where that stands, because even if Curry and Doncic come back, but they're 85%, that opens those series up. They need those guys, are so critical to those offenses. Doesn't it feel like to you it makes 3, 6, 4, 5 way more interesting in the West?
If it wasn't interesting enough, right? Yeah. I think the Warriors will win without Steph. Like you said, even if he comes back later, Steph Curry, obviously, that's adding the secret sauce. I remember one of my friends made the best tacos, Kurt, in high school, the best tacos, and we'd always go over to their family's house to eat tacos. And I was like, "What is the queso recipe?" They wouldn't tell me, but that is Steph Curry is the queso recipe of that tacos. Let's make some great tacos. At the end of the day, it's going to be sensational basketball. But let's get back to the Dallas Mavericks. I agree with you. I don't think they're very good without Luka. And I understand, they're sitting pretty at 4. It's, I get it. Utah versus Mavs. I personally think they're not very good without Luka. So Warriors are okay in my mind. Mavs are not. And then the Clippers, this is an interesting team because I'm not sure what to think about the Clippers. It's pretty interesting without Kawhi. I think obviously they're on the 8th seed right now, trying to get into the playoffs. So I don't know if they're I just don't know how good they are. I think that the answer is pretty clear. When you don't have Kawhi, you're sitting around 500 in the eighth seed, battling for a chance. So I don't think, like you said, I'm not even sure if they're going to win this upcoming game. But we have seen that throughout the season, this team fights. And that's one thing I can never take away from the Clippers is that they fight to the very end. And Coach Lue did a fantastic job getting Karl Anthony Towns basically, out of the game. So as far as like coaching scheme, he's going to put them in the best position to win, and the team will not quit. So those are two things you can't necessarily count out. But as far as like pound for pound talent, I just don't know where this team stands compared to other teams. And when we look at the season, it's pretty clear that they're in the 500 range, fighting for the play-ins. So I don't think that's good enough to go any further.
No. Paul George is back. He had 34 in that loss, but the play-in loss, but and frankly missed shots he normally makes. Like he could have easily had 40 plus in that game. That said, again, 1 star. I think especially I think that matchup, that Friday night game against the Pelicans, is going to be fascinating because Pelicans bring star power to this thing. But even if they get through, Paul George is going to get a steady diet of Mikal Bridges and some other long defenders, and Chris Paul, who's undersized, but just good defender after good defender. And I can keep throwing bodies at him to wear him down. I'm with you. As good as the Clippers are, without Kawhi Leonard, without peak Kawhi Leonard, there's a ceiling on them. It just feels like they're only so good. And I'm not sure that that's going to be good enough, really. I think, like I said, I just think there's a ceiling that's not necessarily there if Luka Doncic is actually whole. If he comes back and he's himself in game 1, Dallas is back to being dangerous, right?
Yeah, and with where the Pelicans are right now, just reading the comments and seeing the way they played against the Spurs, how CJ McCollum, you think that's a tough scenario. You've been most of your career, all of your career in one place, and you were a franchise player, and then going to a new town and helping them be on the cusp of a play-in game. Like, this is a pretty interesting response. We know he's president of the NBPA, the Players Association, and clearly his leadership is shown. It's been transferred very well in that locker room. And that was a locker room we always talked about, Kurt, right? We have all these young guys who are like trying to establish roots, like they're trying to hold on to something, right? It's like, and it's funny because every single time it's like there's a new coach, people leave, Zion's injured, there was nothing to hold on to, and then now they have like the most steady guy in the NBA. Like, I would say Chris Paul is probably one of the most steady guys, but as far as like another player, who better to wrap around than the president of the Players Association and Mr. Reliable for Portland, CJ McCollum. And I think that the vibe and energy in New Orleans, when you go to New Orleans, you talk about sports, it's the Saints. No one, it's like not about the Pelicans. And I think we're starting to see excitement, general excitement. And even Brandon Ingram's like, I've never seen the arena like this before. So this is exciting. And I think that versus the Clippers being demoralized and, losing that game when they did such a great job on Cat, and they allowed D'Angelo Russell and Patrick Beverly and Anthony Edwards to beat them. I feel like the Pelicans have the edge.
I will say, when Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum are on the floor together, and you now have 2 guys who can create their own shot and get down, they attacked. They got downhill. They got into the rim and made it happen that way. I mean, in that game, they took 43 shots in the paint, 20 shots from 3. They were getting downhill, and they shot 65% in the paint. When you do that, you're going to win. It's going to be a little tougher. Zubac is a big body. Again, that's a smart Clippers team that does decently take away the rim. But I think the athletic skill in New Orleans makes that a real chance for them. Like that's not some 9 seed just about to get wiped off the face of the earth. They have a legitimate shot in that game.
Absolutely. And before we move on, the last thing I want to say about that is I think one of the key elements was whenever I watch the Pelicans play, McCollum gets hot early, right? He finds his game, and he's the one who steadies the whole ship, and then he kind of brings back and gets Valanciunas involved, Ingram involved, right? And I think we saw Tyronn Lue do a fantastic job taking away Cat early. I foresee something similar. They're going to take out McCollum and make Valanciunas get hot early. They're going to make Brandon Ingram get hot early, and we'll see if they can step up to that challenge. But like I said, very, very smart tactically, this Clippers team. I want to see how the Pelicans respond. Next up, we have to go to the celebration that everyone's talking about when Patrick Beverly jumped on the scorer's table, took off his jersey, threw it into the stands after Minnesota beat the Clippers to secure their spot against the Memphis Grizzlies. First and foremost, before we even talk about that series, let's talk about the celebration. Was it warranted?
Yeah, I mean, for stuff. And by the way, the league came down on Patrick Beverley. He got a $30,000 fine for some of the comments after the game. Like, that said, I want emotion in my. I want sports fandom, especially when you're really locked into a team like Minnesota that hasn't had that much postseason success, and really since Kevin Garnett left. Celebrate these moments, right? I live for this stuff, and but to borrow a line that I love from my man Tom Ziller, who's a writer for Substack, you don't have to act like you've been there before if you haven't been there before. Like, go out and have fun and celebrate this. I'm totally good with it. I love that kind of energy. It's what sports about. It's about enjoying those kind of moments, man. So I was good with it. Were you?
It depends on what hat I'm wearing. If I'm in the locker room, not okay with it. If I am in the media, I love it. Because it's something to talk about. And like you said, it kind of captures this moment of what the plan's supposed to be. In my mind, the play-in tournament is supposed to manufacture moments. I think of it like an orchestra tuning before a show, right? Where everyone comes in and there's like, okay, they're talking, they're eating snacks, all that stuff, go to the bathroom. And then once you hear the orchestra start to tune, it's like, oh, the show's about to start. Everyone be quiet, right? Like, it's a primer for the playoffs, which is the big show. So this was a perfect primer. We're interested to see, can he back it up? Can the team back it up against a really good Memphis Grizzlies team? How good is Minnesota? Is this just a flash in the pan? These are all the questions that draw us. It piques our interest. So in that sense, as far as manufacturing moments are concerned, I think this is awesome. As a fan, I think you're right, I think this is one of the issues in professional sports right now, and I would say collegiate sports, is that there's no heart and soul. Like I remember I told you, I think one time I talked to this one person. I said, what's your favorite basketball team? And they mentioned players, not teams.
Yeah.
And I'm from San Antonio, and like in San Antonio, there's like one team. It's like the Spurs, right? So for us, this is not just we follow professional players around. It's like, no, you're a Spurs fan through thick and thin. This is our community. This is our culture, right? Like, we're Spurs fans here. And it's the same with Notre Dame football. Like, you're a Notre Dame football fan. Like, you grew up watching Notre Dame. It's a part of your blood. And we just don't necessarily see that in the professional sports arena anymore. And I think the fact that, like, I think Patrick Beverley kind of connected to the primal fan, of like the fan instinct of, he gets it. Second time in 17 years being in the postseason, 18 years being in the postseason. Like, this means as much to him as it means to us. Like, that is very powerful. And I think that is something that we cannot underestimate, the value of connecting with a fan who has suffered for 18 years and saying, yes, like, let's jump on a table together. Like, this is really, it's meaningful to me too.
Right. And it depends on where you are and who you are as a team, right? Like, I love that New Orleans was celebrating crazy in New Orleans. And I love that Minnesota was celebrating like this. If Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving had celebrated like this, I would have been like, guys, more was expected of you. Like, you're in a different place. That was not what we expected of you. You made it in. Good for you. Don't go crazy. But I think in a situation where that wasn't the case in a long time, be in that moment.
But the counterpoint is Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, where they weren't there for a long time. And
That's true.
He was so focused and said, no, the expectation is greatness. And he took them to a Super Bowl, right? So I think that's the balance here. That's what I mean by, as a player, I'm not into it, because as a player, you're supposed to go out there and believe you can win every game. You can't be like, oh, thank God that happened, or we're so surprised that this happened, or we're so relieved. Or the expectation should be, we go out there to win Super Bowls. We go out there to win championships. Of course, that's what should have happened. Right. So that's what I mean by it depends on where I am and what hat I'm sitting in. But since I'm in the media seat and we're talking about this, what a moment. What a moment. So let's now talk about the actual series. How will they fare against the Grizzlies?
I'm not sure that that's going to go as well, but I think this is a pretty entertaining. First off, it's just it's young stars going up against each other, which two up and coming teams in the West. So that's a fun part. Ja Morant on a big stage with the season he's had. But Minnesota has some defenders. Like, they have McDaniels. They have some long arms, some guys that they can get in the way. Ant's incredibly athletic. So I kind of think that this is an interesting, entertaining series. I think Karl Anthony Towns it won't be like the Clipper series, man. They're going to take notes but from Ty Lue, but Ty Lue got the veterans to execute a system that I don't think Memphis, like they're going to have Steven Adams and guys out there, but it's not going to be the same, right? Like, I think it's pretty even. At the end of the day, though, Memphis is just better. Like, Ja Morant he's got to create in the half court a little better. They're not a great half court team. And if the game slows down, he's going to have to. But with Desmond Bane, with what we've seen from this team all season long in terms of execution, I just think it's a better, deeper squad filled with shooters. I think it goes a little longer than people think, and I think it's pretty entertaining. But at the end of the day, Memphis is the 2 seed for a reason. Like, they did not fluke into that.
They've been there for a while too. Yeah, I think it's Memphis all the way. And I just reminded when I went to San Antonio and I saw Dylan Brooks play, and I'm telling you, he plays basketball like a lot of my teammates used to play football. I mean, the way that he loves the game and the fight and like the dog mentality he brings to them, I think is akin to something like a Marcus Smart. But the offensive firepower that he brings in that kind of like, you won't beat me. That's an edge I think that's going to carry Memphis very far. I think he's like the third most important person on that team, right? Ja, Jaren, and Jaren Jackson, and then
Jaren brings defense that I think helps control the paint a little bit. He's an all defensive level player, and I think Anthony Edwards going into the lane is, for all his athleticism, is going to find it a little bit different with.
Yeah, I think this is one of the most interesting things for me because I agree with you. This is going to be a moment for Minnesota to kind of bloom on a very big stage because of how famous Ja is and the attention he brings to anything that he does. The question though is, who's going to have the attention? Who's going to be the star? Is it going to be Anthony Edwards or is it going to be Cat? It's one of those things. Like I'm curious to see who's going to step into that limelight and kind of become one of the the elite players in the NBA because obviously Cat's numbers are just amazing. He's an all-star, absolutely. But we saw in the play-in game when Cat was rendered ineffective by that coaching scheme, Anthony Edwards became the star, and I think that's wonderful that you have players who can step up. And I'm curious to see when we see the series, we look at it in my mind very much like Utah Denver. Remember when Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell and everyone, they just bloomed and everyone's like, man, like these guys are really good. That's kind of what I see is perfect for Minnesota right now. Is it's going to be a really big bloom, and I think obviously if you're around Minnesota, you know how good Karl Anthony Towns is. I think this is a great opportunity for him to respond and say, look, like this is what happened in the play-in game. Now everyone knows, they've seen the tape, they understand what to go against. Like this is the playoffs. It's going to be a whole nother level of attention and focus on me. How do I control my emotions? How do I make smarter decisions and not get into foul trouble? And how do I make sure that I can't get rendered ineffective in a 7-game series against the Grizzlies, or we're going to lose? I think that level of responsibility and accountability, I'm excited to see him step up into and become the star on a league-wide stage that we know he has a talent to be. But I'm curious though, because Anthony Edwards has that, like he has that electricity. So I don't know. Maybe both of them.
Yeah, maybe both. And Edwards doesn't lack for confidence. So you don't worry about that. That's going to be fun.
Next up, dark horse. Any dark horse picks for you?
I think Toronto is going to upset Philly in the first round.
Wow.
I think that the Raptors are that legit. And I think that's partially just a bad matchup. Philly should be the betting favorite. Joel Embiid is going to have, I think, a monster series and is fully capable of winning this thing. They don't have a great matchup for him. I mean, they've got some bodies, but it's not the same. But I think there are a lot of other places to attack Philadelphia. And what you get with Toronto is, again, another really well-coached team, right? Like Nick Nurse is going to come up with schemes that cause problems. But I think they can slow James Harden. James Harden hasn't, necessarily looked like peak James Harden of late anyway, but I can roll OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam. I've got 6'9" switchable guys everywhere on this roster, and I can make life difficult for him. Just one long athletic defender after another. I'm not sure we're going to get a lot of peak James Harden in this, and if not, I'm not sure that they're going to be able to score enough and keep up. The other factor in this is they lose Matisse Thybulle for 3 games. He's not vaccinated. He doesn't want to he's talked publicly about this. He's made this choice. That means he can't play in Canada. Now you've lost your best perimeter defender. If Toronto can steal one of these first 2 in Philly and go home. I like their chances a lot. I think this is a bad matchup for Philly.
Wow. No, I can't wait to follow that. For me, my dark horse is Atlanta. Atlanta. I think the Hawks. I think they can go far, 8-2 in recent games, and just dominant the plan. I really do think that they might surprise some people. I don't know how far, but I think it's going to be. They surprised me. I was wrong. I'm excited to see how they keep going. But all in all, I think it's pretty clear, Kurt. Right? It's like the Suns. Like, like it's what I'm saying. It's like it's almost like who's going to play the Suns.
That's the bar, right? Like if you want a championship, there's the level. Like you're going to have to be better than these guys, and I'm with you. I'm not sure anybody is.